What's going on? Welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season. We got a fun show today as we are going to start to transition into some regularity in our shows. We're going to have some special shows, don't get me wrong. Like this upcoming week, we're going to have a conference power rankings, so we're going to do different stuff like that. But the breakdown of kind of what our shows are going to look like on specifically usually these Monday or Tuesday episodes is going to be the big results because the Saturdays are absolutely loaded now with conference play in full swing right now. And then we're going to get into the AP poll. We're going to get into some of our new rankings. We're going to get into some bracketology. And then, of course, the games to watch for the entire week as we're starting to get real busy on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's usually about it. Fridays are actually okay as now the Big Ten has really incorporated utilizing that Friday. So that's going to be what the show is going to look like today, more of a regular show. But like I mentioned, we're going to have some special shows, some full bracketology shows, conference power rankings, All-Americans, stuff like that. This upcoming week will be conference power rankings. But today, just going to be a standard show. We're going to be ad-free, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Follow us on social media at Bracket Science with 2 S's. That's on Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok, even if it's no longer going to be around, it sounds like. Give us a follow there. Check out some of our stuff. Maybe it'll stick around. You never know. And then click the link below, the first link for some quality clothing and apparel on our Amazon page. So go check that out. All right, let's dive into some of the results. The main day we're going to talk about is Saturday, but we did talk briefly on Friday before the UCLA-Maryland game. So it was number 22 UCLA visiting Maryland. Maryland beat them easily, 77-61. The story, Mick Cronin was ejected in this game. He is having some problems on the sidelines as of late. Obviously, there's bigger things in the world that I'm sure him and a lot of his players and a lot of his friends are dealing with over in Los Angeles. So, take it how it is. But big win there for Maryland. Let's move on to Saturday. Saturday's the day we want to talk about. We had to make a new graphic. 24 games on here because there were just too much good stuff going on. Now, with that being said, not really any too surprising results, I guess to say. Ranked teams did fairly well. We will talk about one with Illinois being the most surprising loss of the day. But we're just going to go through these in numerical order, talk a little bit about the game, and some of these teams we're going to discuss a little bit because they are really struggling. Hint, hint, Indiana. My goodness, find them on the graphic. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. In numerical order, number 1, Tennessee rebounded after that tough Florida loss to take down Texas. And Texas was, obviously a home for Rick Barnes, Tennessee's coach, but he comes back. I know Rick Barnes will always say that, it's just another game, but it's still nice to come in and beat this Texas team. Texas falls to 0-3. This was an absolutely atrocious beat for Tennessee bettors. I'm so sorry to all the Tennessee bettors. Texas just did not foul or something, like with 5 seconds left, down 4. It was strange, and they knocked down like a bogus 3. I don't even remember who it was. It was a tough beat for Tennessee bettors. But Texas, the big loser here, 0-3 in the SEC now. Rodney Terry, it's not going well. It is not going well for this Texas team. Rodney Terry made the Elite Eight in his opening year. We've talked about that on this podcast quite a few times, that opening year. But that was the year where Chris Beard had the team absolutely rolling, and then obviously some big issues there with Chris Beard over at Texas with we're not going to dive all into that, but ugly stuff. And then Rodney Terry takes over, takes him to the Elite Eight, wins the Big 12. That kind of solidified himself as having the job, but it's not gone great since then. They were 7 seed last year, actually won a game. They played Colorado State and then got drilled, I think, by Tennessee once again. So a lot of history between these teams, but Tennessee gets the job done. Zakai Ziegler, 16 points, 8 assists in this one. Rick Barnes did bench Chaz Lanier right out of the start of the second half because Chaz Lanier did not shoot a 3. I like it. They got a great relationship, and Chaz Lanier just been fantastic all year. Trey Johnson was the bright spot, the superstar freshman for Texas. 26 points. Let's move on. Sticking in the SEC, as we just most likely will when we're talking about the top-ranked teams in the country. Auburn survives South Carolina 66-63. This is not the big story. The big story, Johni Broome. Potential player of the year right now, him or Cooper Flagg. Johni Broome leaves the game out for They say it's a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out a couple games. I would say anywhere in between 2 and 6 games. Jonai Broom will be out. He's their best player. This really sucks for him because he was really on pace to potentially be the player of the year. It's going to be harder, obviously, without being able to play as many games, especially when Cooper Flagg's playing really well. Auburn did end up surviving in the game. They trailed by 6, ended up winning 66-63. Colin Murray-Boyles was fantastic for South Carolina. He had 25 points, 7 rebounds. The big story, Jonai Broom. He does not need surgery. Good news. Good news. We want to see him around, but he will definitely miss a couple games. It was ugly. It was ugly. If you saw it, it was a full ankle turn. Didn't look good, but nice to avoid surgery in that one. Number 3, Iowa State survived Texas Tech in Lubbock, 85-84 in overtime. At the end of regulation, it was fantastic. Taman Lipsey dropped an absolute dime to Josh Jefferson to make the layup with at the buzzer to send it to overtime. Iowa State eventually held off in overtime. Texas Tech had the opportunity to get that win where that solidified themselves as being a tournament team. Now they're still hanging on around the bubble. Obviously, this loss doesn't hurt you too much, but it would have been just so nice to pick up this win. Curtis Jones for Iowa State, the 6th man of the year in the Big 12. I'll already say it, barring injury. 26 points in this one off the bench. He is fantastic. He was the 6th man of the year last year. He's going to be the 6th man of the year again this year, barring anything stupid happening. The game that, no surprise what happens, but we just have to talk about it. Notre Dame loses at number 4 Duke, 86-78. Kind of a closer game down the stretch. Cooper Flagg, my goodness. 11 of 14 from the field, 42 points. This is ridiculous. This was an absolutely ridiculous performance. 6 rebounds, 7 assists. 7 assists, and he scored 42 points. Most of his scoring came from, a lot of his scoring came from the free throw line in this one. He was 16 of 17 from the free throw line. He also had 1 steal. I mean, this was an all-time performance. It's the ACC record, beating, the likes of Michael Jordan, obviously Zion Williamson. ACC freshman record, 4 points, 42 points, Cooper Flagg. Outstanding. Tough day for Jonai Broom. He's going to be out for a couple games, and Cooper Flagg does this. Cooper Flagg might now be the favorite as a player of the year. Duke did jump Auburn as the favorite at FanDuel for the national champion. So Duke, nice little performance there, though they just kind of survived Notre Dame in that one. It was never as real close, but it was closer than you might imagine. Duke was 21-point favorites in that one. Moving back to the SEC, number 5 Alabama took down number 10 Texas A&M. Texas A&M without Wade Taylor IV in this game, 94-88. The game wasn't that close for a while. It was kind of Alabama leading by a lot for a while, and then Texas A&M really fought back. A lot of credit to them. I think this is just going to, quite frankly, be beneficial for Texas A&M. So Wade Taylor's out. Manny Obaseki was the guy who really led their charge last year, late in the year, to almost upset number 1 Houston in the NCAA tournament. Obaseki has not been very good this year. He's been forced into this starting role with Wade Taylor being out. So he's kind of been facilitating the offense, get him involved, get him playing a little bit better. And then when Wade Taylor returns, go back to his role of, he didn't play great in this one, but he looks fine running the offense is what I got from this game. But Alabama eventually picks up the win. Mark Sear's been playing a lot better as of late, 27 points in this one, knocked down 4 threes. He was, I know he was the CBS Sports preseason player of the year, and he hasn't been bad, don't get me wrong, but not player of the year type of stats as of now. But great win there for Alabama. Alabama's still flying under the radar. They're a legit national championship competitor. They're 3-0 in the SEC. I cannot wait for Alabama and Auburn this year. That's going to be so much fun. Hopefully Jonai Broom's back for that one. Also in the SEC, another top 15 matchup as we come to expect. Number 6 Kentucky took down number 14 Mississippi State at Mississippi State. 95-90. This Kentucky team's offense, my goodness, is so fun to watch. Jackson Robinson had his best game as a member of Big Blue Nation with 27 points in this one. Nice to see him light it up. Kentucky controlled pretty much the entire game. Cam Matthews was the story for Mississippi State. For those who don't know Cam Matthews, he is the type of player you want in your program. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 6 steals in this one. He's really good. So is Kentucky. This loss won't kill Mississippi State, but they had a prime opportunity to take down Kentucky. They lose in this one, and still hanging around like the 3 seed line right now, though, for Mississippi State. We'll talk about them here in a bit. Sticking in the SEC, as we're going to continue to talk about, it seems. Number 8, Florida, traveled to Arkansas. Arkansas is abysmal right now. Florida gets the job done 71-63. John Calipari's team had a big opportunity here. Not close. Arkansas and Texas in the same boat right now. Same records, 11-5, 0-3 in the SEC. Yet Arkansas looks worse than even this Texas team that I just hated on. Quite frankly, this Arkansas team is they're just bad. They look like they're badly coached. They look like they don't want to be there. We thought they had a ton of talent. John L. Davis has just been, quite frankly, non-existent. I love John L. Davis at FAU. He had 0 points in this game, 0 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, 3 turnovers. It's ugly. It is ugly for John L. Davis right now. Jonas Adu just doesn't look very good out there, quite frankly. He was a terrific defensive player at Tennessee. I don't know if he's hurt. He doesn't look great. He had a decent game in this one, 11 points, 4 of 5 from the field. He just doesn't look like an elite SEC player right now. Boogie Fland is good. Don't get me wrong, Adu Thiero is good, but outside of that, no good. They do not look like a good basketball team right now. They're on the outside looking in. Could be Kentucky fans and Arkansas fans are kind of creating new friendships on social media, if you haven't seen, as they just kind of hate talk John Calipari. It's ugly. Florida was led by some seriously balanced scoring. Elijah Martin led him with 14 points. He has been really good. He's been so much better. Him and John L. Davis, teammates, went to the Final Four together. He's been a lot better than John L. Davis has been this year. Is that Calipari? I don't know. I thought John L. Davis was going to be fantastic. He hasn't been. Number 9, UConn took down Georgetown at Georgetown 68-60. The game really wasn't this close. UConn just dominated basically the entire way. With that said, if you're Georgetown and you lose by 8 to the defending back-to-back national champions, okay. If you're putting in place what they've been lately, the game was only a 4-point game at halftime. Then UConn went on a 17-2 run to start the second half, And then it just was kind of Georgetown clawing back from there, but never really a game. Alex Karaban led 19 points, 6 rebounds. He redeemed himself after those tough missed free throws, obviously. All right, now we're going to talk about a team that I have serious concerns about to the level of Arkansas. Number 11, Kansas goes and beats Cincinnati at Cincinnati. Listen to the final score, 54-40. This Cincinnati team cannot score the basketball whatsoever. I really like Wes Miller. I thought he did a halfway decent job last year. I thought he was in a great spot to be Big 12 Coach of the Year this year. It has been a poor coaching job. I will say that just to be completely honest. They got the transfer in from Texas with Dylan Mitchell. Absolute freak athlete. He was the only one in this game for Cincinnati with double-figure points, and he had 10. 5 of 8 from the field. Simas Lukosius, 1 of 10 from the field, 0 of 6 from 3. This is a home game, bear in mind, an arena that they shoot in all the time over a Fifth Third Arena. Arrington Page was fine off the bench. Dan Skillings has been fine. His team cannot score. 30% from the field, 13% from 3. At some point, it's not just an odd game out. It's just they do not make shots. Kansas didn't really make shots either. 35% from the field, 9% from 3, 2 of 21. It was ugly. Hunter Dickinson led him 14 points, 12 rebounds, kind of carried him, but it ended up being a blowout in the second half. Kansas outscored them 30-15 in the second half. I'm sick and tired of watching this Cincinnati team, quite frankly. They were up to number 16 in the AP poll at one point, and they have just had a complete fall off. 0-4 in the Big 12 right now. It's ugly. It's ugly for Cincinnati. I feel for them. They had so much hype coming into the season, and it's just not good. Speaking of a team who is not good, in fact, they are pretty awful. Kansas State loses a home game by 30 to Houston. Houston wins 87-57. Joseph Tugler, 13 points, 10 rebounds. Houston, watch out for them. They're starting to really figure their things out, flying under the radar. Now, we mentioned Illinois as being the most surprising result of the entire slate. It was. They lose a home game to USC, a struggling USC team. USC goes in, leaves no doubt. 82-72 thanks to Desmond Claude, 31 points. Huge win. First win for Coach Eric Musselman. We talked about him on the last show, kind of blowing off Mike Woodson on a handshake, and we're like, what's that all about? Did a good job in this one. 82-72. Illinois still without Jonas, which is huge. He's probably a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, but still can't lose home games to a bottom half Big Ten team. Oklahoma really starting to fall off as well. They lose at Georgia 62-72. Not a bad loss. Georgia's really good. Georgia is ranked now. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But Oklahoma, after starting off 10-0, they are 0-3 in the SEC, kind of in that Arkansas-Texas boat, yet I think our Oklahoma is better coached, and I quite frankly think they're a better team. They've had a tough schedule to start this SEC play. Let me take a look at this one, and I know it's been tough. I can't quite remember. They lost to Texas A&M, which they should have won. Who was the other game? Oh, it was Alabama. They lost at Alabama in their opening SEC game. So it's been a gauntlet at Alabama against Texas A&M, and then now at Georgia. That's tough. That's a tough start to the SEC play, but 0-3. I think they'll be fine. I think they're going to still end up being in the tournament. I can't really say the same about Texas and Arkansas, though Texas and Arkansas have more talent than this Oklahoma team. Moving down, Gonzaga picks up a win over Washington State, 88-75. Gonzaga, they're going to have some opportunities. These are games you just basically can't lose because Washington State and Oregon State are pretty good teams this year, but you just can't lose them because you're Gonzaga and you're fighting for your life to dominate this conference. The last ranked matchup that we will talk about, Boise State went to Utah State. Utah State won it thanks to an Ian Martinez 4-point play at the end of the game, 81-79. It was crazy, a just generous bounce by the rim. This Utah State environment was awesome. For those who did not look it up on Twitter right now. If you didn't see it, look it up. The Utah State environment was absolutely nuts. Utah State is really good. They're 16-1 with the loss to for UC San Diego, which we'll talk about here in a second. Utah State now 12 wins in a row, the longest winning streak in the country. The only team they've lost to, weirdly, is UC San Diego, but they did just lose. And Utah State, now the owner of the longest winning streak in college basketball. Huge stuff for Utah State. 16-1. Ian Martinez, great shot. Moving down, Louisville beats Pitt. My goodness, at Pitt, 82-78. Pat Kelsey is on a heater right now. Your top 5 teams in the ACC, this is in no particular order. Duke is one. That's a for sure thing. Your next toughest ones are Louisville, Pitt, UNC, and Clemson. Louisville has beat every single one of these teams. Louisville's the second best team in the ACC right now. They would be the second highest bracketologist team as of right now. Louisville, good for Pat Kelsey. They're getting the job done. Pitt, starting to fade a little bit. Got to figure some things out there, and probably I think it's going to end up being a 5-bid ACC league. If I had to guess, I think it will be those 5 teams. They've got to hang on. Don't lose any of these real tough ones. San Diego State loses at New Mexico. New Mexico starting to play really well. I watched this team a couple times early this year. First, I'll mention the final score was 62-48, so their defense really good. San Diego State's offense, they're a defensive team, as they are every single year. But New Mexico and Richard Pitino, I watched them a couple games early this year, and I did not like this team. Obviously, they must have things figured out. I know the Pitt's a great home court environment, but they're on a heater right now. Their metrics have them probably in the tournament as of right now. So a good win for New Mexico. Baylor survived Arizona State. Man, Baylor led big, led the entire way. Arizona State clawed back, got it to overtime, but Baylor hung on 72-66. I am not going to talk about Baylor because I still cannot figure this team out. They beat the teams they should beat. Anyone ranked any bit better than them, they get destroyed by. I can't figure them out. I think they're good. I know Scott Drew's good. I know Norchad Omir's good. Is the ceiling reliant on VJ Edgecombe? I'm not sure. We're going to find out. BYU loses a game that they could not afford to lose at TCU. BYU was like probably a first 8-ish team out of the tournament. TCU, when I did my latest power conference ratings, now this was before conference play, I had TCU as the worst team in the Big 12. They're 2-2, off to a nice start, but they're still not good. They had a horrible non-conference. BYU could not afford to lose this game, and they did. That's a tough loss. TCU, yeah, we'll see. Now, North Carolina took on North Carolina State in a rivalry game, went to NC State and beat them 63-61. Great performance at the end of the game by Jalen Washington. Jalen Washington seemed to start a whole new trend with with the Wolfpack down. I had never heard of it, but nice to see some some North Carolina big men finally contributing. They get the win there. NC State off to a rough start to the year. Villanova lost at St. John's 82-68. Villanova had a good opportunity here to pick up a huge win, but St. John's is really good. St. John's doesn't have any real elite wins, yet the computers love them, and they do definitely pass the eye test. They're a really good basketball team. Indiana went to Iowa. Yikes. 85-60. Iowa gets the job done. I thought Indiana was in a great spot here to pick up maybe a win. Now, they are without Malik Renew. Iowa is in the tournament right now. They're probably like a 10 seed, I would say, as of right now. Indiana I had them as a first 4 game going into this game. You can't lose by 25. You're freaking Indiana, for God's sake. This is the Louisville one was just like, what just happened? You give them an excuse for one game. It happens twice. It's like, all right, this is a regularity. You're Indiana. You have all the talent in the world. Here's what I will say about my experience with Indiana. I didn't rank Indiana after their huge transfer class immediately. And I got a lot of hate about it, saying this team is so talented that they cannot fail. And I slowly started buying into it, and I ended up ranking them, fell into the crowd. You know how it goes. And then now that I see them failing again, it's just, you look back at last year and you're like, this team was really good last year. They had a ton of talent on the roster last year. Why were they not good? It's coaching. It is all Mike Woodson. Last year, Khalil Ware was like a top 15 player in the country. If he was on a good team, they'd have been an All-American. I don't know what his voting was in terms of All-American. I can't remember, but he would have been an All-American. He was awesome. They had a great roster last year. They had Khalil Ware, who was that guy to go to get them whatever they needed. They still had Malik Renew. They still had Mackenzie Mbako. Have they improved? Of course. How much are they improving under Mike Woodson? Probably not that much. They still had Trey Galloway. They had Xavier Johnson, who battled some injuries, but he was a legit, notable player, and they still were just not good. It's happening again this year. You can say their roster is maybe a little better this year. It's probably a little bit better, but they're still failing at the same level. They're falling at KenPom. They're falling in the net. They're falling at Torvik. This is tough. It is tough for Indiana fans. I love when Assembly Hall is rocking, and there's just not the same energy because no one wants to support Mike Woodson, and I don't blame them. It's ugly. I'm tired of this Indiana team. They should be so good. If they crawl back into the tournament, they're still probably going to have to win a game to save his job. I can't believe they could have had Dusty May. That's the most frustrating part. They could have had Dusty May. Dusty May is leading Michigan to the top of the Big Ten right now, while Indiana's just in there fitting in somewhere. Indiana's too proud of a program to just fit in there somewhere. I'm sick of them. Good win for Iowa. Iowa up to a 10 seed right now. Good for Iowa. All right, let's move on and talk about Vanderbilt traveling to Missouri and losing 66-75. Missouri off to a great start this year. 2 teams I would have in the tournament as of this game and still as of now. Obviously, you got to protect your home court. Missouri did that. Missouri, Dennis Gates, great job on a rebound year. Moving down, UCF lost at Arizona 88-80. This game was actually closer than I expected. I think the line ended at 16.5, 17.5, depending on where you were. Arizona dominated the entire way. UCF kind of clawed back. UCF, first couple teams out probably right now. Maybe last team in. They're on the bubble. Arizona is, believe it or not, they're pretty high up there. They're probably looking at about a 6 or 7 seed right now. No bad losses for Arizona. They're starting to pick up some quad one games. And then the game we mentioned, the biggest mid-major game of the day was UC Irvine and UC San Diego, 2 of the top 3-4 mid-majors in the entire country, both out of the Big West. UC Irvine went to San Diego and beat them 62-52. 2 teams really battling for some at-large consideration in that one. So good stuff for UC Irvine. On Sunday, we didn't have much, a little bit of some Big Ten action. Number 15, Oregon survived yet again. This one was at Penn State, 82-81. I see why people say that Oregon doesn't really pass the eye test as much as some of the other Big Ten teams, the Michigan States, the Michigans, the Illinois. They win. They barely beat Ohio State, shouldn't have really beat them. They shouldn't have beat Penn State, and they beat them. This team wins both games on the road. The resume is spectacular. The metrics don't like them as much. Resume, so good. Speaking of Michigan State, they went to Northwestern and handed it ended up being a 10-point loss, but it was a blowout the entire way. Number 60, Michigan State, 78. Northwestern, 68. Nebraska, speaking of blowouts, went to Purdue. Purdue beat them 104-68. Braden Smith went off in this one. Braden Smith is going to lead the country in assists. This team's really starting to pick up some steam right now. They're obviously not as good as last year, but they're still really good under Matt Painter. 104-68, my goodness. The number 21 West Virginia, coming off a couple losses, rebounded in a good way at Colorado, a game that is just that game you don't want to play, quite frankly. Colorado, not the best team in the Big 12, but they're never an easy out. West Virginia got the job done 78-70. Shout out to Javon Small. He is so good, the point guard for West Virginia in that one. Now let's talk about the AP poll. We're recording this on Monday night. Right now, in about half an hour, UCLA is going to play Rutgers. So if you notice, we're not going to talk about that game. UCLA kind of really needs it. Rutgers is abysmal right now, and they need it more than anything. So kind of a desperation game, a game that many people won't really care about, but it should be a fun one. So, but we are going to talk about the AP poll. Auburn is finally your number one team in the country. They have the best resume. They would be the number one overall team in the bracket right now. Auburn is your number one team. Iowa State up to 2. Duke up to 3. No surprise there. Those are definitely your top 3 teams right now. Behind them, it was either Alabama or Florida. Alabama got it in the AP poll at 4. Florida at 5. Tennessee dropped to 6. Marquette's at 7th. Kentucky's at 8. Kansas is at 9. And Houston's at 10. This is pretty much the top 10 I would see just about everyone having. Well, that's my exact top 10, just in a little bit of different orders. So top 10, 11th, Texas A&M. Michigan State is up to 12. Here's what, I'll talk about Michigan State here in a second. Let's get through this. 13, Oregon moves up. UConn is up to 14. Mississippi State dropped to 15. I think they were 14, dropped to 15. Gonzaga 16. Purdue 17. Memphis 18. Illinois dropped 6 spots to 19. Michigan State to 20. Ole Miss 21. Utah State up to 22. Georgia up to 23. I thought Georgia was going to climb higher than that. They had a great week. Absolutely great week. They're up at 23. Wisconsin to 24. And Baylor ranked again at 25. Now, for a little bit more of an in-depth analysis, let's get into the personal rankings. Auburn, number 1. Iowa State, 2. Duke, 3. Yes, that's pretty much what you're going to find anywhere. I do have Florida over Alabama. It's picking hairs. Alabama has a better resume. Florida looks fantastic, though. I don't know. They're both fantastic either way. At number 6, I do have Marquette. I have Kentucky at 7. I did drop Tennessee to 8. I know it's just one game against Florida. I thought they were just going to absolutely dominate Texas, and they really didn't. They kind of let them hang around a little bit. Texas actually led for a while. That was kind of more of the game. I think I had them drop to like 6th, and then I dropped them to 8 after that game, believe it or not, even after a win. I know that might be stupid, but I don't know. We'll see about them. At number 9, I do have, and this also counts the fact, not Marquette, but Kentucky also won at Mississippi State, so that kind of influenced it a little bit. Anyways, number 9, Houston. I do have Houston. They still don't have any quad 1 wins. I think if you ask anyone in the country, though, this team is fantastic. I actually got a question about Houston, which I'll go over. It was a great question. They were someone asked, they're like, so why would Houston be like a protected seed right now, a top 4 seed, if they don't have any quad 1 wins? Because, and this is how I explained it, the metrics are so good. They're number 1 at Torvik. They're number 3 at Ken Pom. They're number 3 in the net. The metrics are so good that, say, based off their resume, I mean, they're still 12-3. They're still really good. Say you have them as a 7 seed. You would have a scenario as a 7 versus 10 seed. Say you're playing 10-seeded, I don't know, for the sake of this conversation, 10-seeded Ohio State. Houston would probably be favored by like 14.5 in that game. And that's just, this is something that the committee really does look at. And they're like, all right, how good really is this team? They do look at those computer numbers. That's what the computer numbers, are really predicting, is those betting lines. Like Ken Pom is the main influence on betting lines. So Houston would just be, quite frankly, too good to be a 7 seed in the eyes of the computers. And this is what the committee kind of looks at. So it was a great question. Love talking about that kind of stuff. At number 10, I do have Kansas out of the Big 12. I have Michigan State at 11. I guess I have them higher than even the AP poll has them. The AP poll has them at 12. They look really good, but here's what I'm going to talk negatively a second about Michigan State. They're obviously really good, but they haven't really beaten anyone elite, is what I will what I'll kind of just say about them, they've played like against the Nebraskas, against the Northwesterns, they're dominating teams, which is great, which is what you need to do to really build up. Excuse me here, I'm just typing in Michigan State to see what their schedule is looking like. But they're beating the Nebraskas, they're beating the Northwesterns, but when they had that prime opportunity, and I know it's a different team now than it was back then, they had that prime opportunity to go against Kansas, and as soon as that game happened, people were like, Michigan State should be kicked out of the Champions Classic. It's a completely different team now. I'm a little concerned that they really cannot make threes. They also had a big opportunity against Memphis in Maui, and Memphis just looked like the better team. Once again, different team now. I get it. Everyone hates North Carolina. They think they've been really disappointing. Michigan State went to overtime with them, beat them by 3. Should they have won the game? Yes, but as of late, they've looked great, winning at Ohio State. They beat Washington by 1,000,000. They just won at Northwestern by a lot. Once again, they beat Nebraska by 37 points. It's just their style of play that is so appealing to the eye because they don't really shoot threes, and Cohen Carr can just jump out of the gym. Tom Izzo's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Tom Izzo, an absolutely fantastic coach, but they need an elite win. I will say that. I want to see them go to Purdue and beat them. I want to see them go to Illinois and beat them. I know it's easier said than done, and those aren't bad losses, and they're not going to take a hit out of it. I'd like to see them beat Michigan on their home floor by, 15. Then you're really talking about something here. I want to see it against these top half teams, and I want to see them pick up an elite win. No really elite wins yet. Outside that North Carolina one starting to age a little better, but still took them to overtime, so it's like 11 seems a little high to me. They do look good. They do look good. Don't get me wrong. At number 12, I got Texas A&M. 13, Mississippi State. 14, Memphis. 15, UConn. 16, Michigan. I'm high on Michigan. I will continue to preach it. I think Michigan is going to be a very popular pick to make the Final Four. Illinois at 17. Oregon at 18, we already talked about them. 19, I got Georgia. 20, Purdue. 21, Ole Miss. 22, Gonzaga. 23, Utah State. Here's what I will say. I think Purdue should be higher, but I have nowhere to move them. I can't move them ahead of any of these teams. I don't think. I want to move them ahead of Illinois, kind of. But Illinois looks like they can beat just about anyone. Oregon's resume is as good as anyone's, and Georgia has been blazing hot. So it's like there's really nowhere for them to go. Same goes for Utah State. At 23, Wisconsin to 24. I have Arizona up at 25. Baylor at 26. Those two get to play each other here, which we'll talk about here in a second. St. John's up at 27. West Virginia at 28. Louisville at 29. Yes, I have Louisville ranked. Go Pat Kelsey. And rounding out the top 30, I do have Maryland, strongly considered, North Carolina, Oklahoma, St. Mary's, San Diego State, Nebraska, and UCLA. Now let's dive into the top 4 seeds. The top 4 are, or the 4 1 seeds are pretty easy to pick. Auburn, Duke, Iowa State, Alabama as the fourth number 1 seed. A lot of questions on why not Florida. The main difference is strength of schedule in the non-conference. Alabama's is like 12th. Florida's is like 235th or something like that. And Alabama has lost one more game. Their strength of record's better. They look a little bit better in the quadrants. But Florida is rated higher by most of the computers. So, but it's Alabama by a hair right now. Marquette as the second 2 seed, Tennessee as the third, and Kentucky as the fourth 2 seed up to a 2 seed. 3 seeds, Kansas. Yes, I know a lot of people don't like Kansas. They still have a really good resume going right now. Third, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Oregon. Oregon would be a top 2 seed if it wasn't for their computer metrics. 4 seeds, Illinois. That was a seed line loss against USC. Michigan State, Houston, we already talked about, and Memphis. What I will say about Memphis is Memphis doesn't have really anywhere to go but down because there's so limited quad 1 opportunities. If Houston loses a quad 1 game, it doesn't really matter because quad 1 doesn't really affect you in the eyes of the committee. If Memphis loses a game, it's not going to be quad 1. So, really nowhere to go. They're great though. They might go undefeated in the AAC for all I know. 5 seeds on the up next, I do have UConn, Purdue, Gonzaga, and Michigan. So, some sneaky teams there to really pay attention to. Those are some teams that could make a big push. All right, now let's dive into the games to watch for the week. quickly here, we just have we got a good days on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday slower than usual. But at 7 o'clock on Peacock, we got number 19 Illinois traveling to Assembly Hall to take on Indiana. Illinois favored by 5. Let's get back to that Mike Woodson conversation. Should a team at Indiana ever be at home against Illinois and an underdog by 5 points? No, that's not Indiana standards. Illinois favored by 5 on that one. With that being said, Indiana has a huge opportunity here to pick up the much-needed win. Also at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, a top 11 matchup. Number 11 Texas A&M travels to number 8 Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 3 in this game. At 7 o'clock on ESPNU. At 7 o'clock, by the way, we have 3 ranked-on-ranked matchups. All out of the SEC, of course. 7 o'clock, ESPNU. Number 21, Ole Miss travels to number 4 now, Alabama. Alabama favored by 8 in that one. Also at 7 o'clock, number 15, Mississippi State travels to number 1, Auburn. This game's on the SEC network. Auburn favored by 13. That line will not be that big because Joe Nybroom is 99% not going to play in that one. So keep in mind the line will probably be 8.5, 9.5 when it comes out. Mississippi State in a good spot here. It's as sad as it sounds to kind of take advantage of that Auburn team in that scenario. Mississippi State coming off a loss. We'll see what they can do and see if they can pick up the biggest win of the season, quite frankly. At 9 o'clock on Peacock, Ohio State travels to number 24, Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored by 6 in this one. My first initial reaction is I think Wisconsin will blow them out. Yet we know this Ohio State team can be really good. I think if I had to pick, Wisconsin might score, I don't know. They might score 100 plus in this one, but you should have said the same thing about Kentucky, and Ohio State held them to 65 and beat them by 20. Wisconsin's offense, really good. First instinct, Wisconsin blows them out, but Ohio State, when they got some motivation, they really can play well. Also at 9 o'clock on ESPNU, Missouri travels to number 5, Florida. Florida favored by 12 in that one, and as promised, unfortunately, at 11 o'clock on the East Coast on ESPN, number 25 Baylor travels to Arizona. Arizona favored by 4 in that one. I think Arizona is going to get the win in that one and really get back on people's radars and maybe even jump into the AP poll next week. Also at 11 o'clock, also in the Big 12, UCF travels to Arizona State. Arizona State favored by 6 in this one, 2 bubble-ish teams. On Wednesday, we do have the game of the week at 7 o'clock to open the night on ESPN2. Number 9, Kansas travels to Hilton. Number 2, Iowa State. This is going to be a fun one. This is a blockbuster matchup here. Iowa State is favored by 6. Can Kansas get back on track and solidify themselves towards the top of the Big 12? Can Iowa State prove that they might be the best team in the country? It's going to be fun to watch. People forget Iowa State's only loss was to Auburn, who's number 1, and Auburn was down by 16 in that game. Iowa State led by 16 at one point in that game. Auburn fought back, so you could be talking about an undefeated Iowa State team, and we're talking about, wow, is this one of the best teams ever? They're really good. That's going to be a fun matchup. Everyone tune in 7 o'clock Wednesday. At 7:30 on the Big Ten Network, Penn State travels to number 12, Michigan State. Michigan State is favored by 10 over there at KenPom. Penn State really starting to fall off a little bit here. Michigan State playing great. Not a great spot for Penn State in this one, but they're on the outside looking in as of now. At 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus, West Virginia travels to number 10, Houston, back inside the top 10. Houston favored by 14 at KenPom. This could be a Houston just I'm so much better than you and just really shut down Javon Small, force the other guys to make shots on their incredibly tough defense. I could see this being a blowout. I could also see West Virginia, really knocking down some shots and proving that they're not an underdog as much as you think and as they have all year, just like they did at Kansas. But tough spot. 8 o'clock ESPN Plus. At 8 o'clock on the SEC Network, another ranked-on-ranked matchup. Take a guess what conference is in. Yes, the SEC. Number 23, Georgia, travels to number 6, Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 11. Seems like a big number, but they really need a get-back game, and Georgia walking into a tough one there. At 9 o'clock on ESPNU, Pitt travels to FSU. Florida State. Pitt is favored by 3 on the road. Do not lose this game, Pitt. Do not lose this game, or it is starting to become real crunch time. They're in the tournament right now, but not by too incredibly much. Speaking of games, do not lose. Cincinnati, do not lose at Colorado at 9 o'clock on ESPN+. Cincinnati is favored by 2. Do not lose that game. As mentioned, Colorado, one of those teams, it just sucks to see them on the schedule because it's not a great win if you beat them, but they're a tough out. At 10 o'clock on the SEC Network, a very big rivalry game in two teams that have not won a game in the SEC. Texas travels to Oklahoma. Both teams desperately need a win. Oklahoma favored by 3 in that game. Texas has more talent. Oklahoma's better coached. We'll see. 10 o'clock SEC Network. On Thursday, a little bit slower, number 20, Michigan travels to Minnesota in a just don't lose kind of game. Michigan favored by 12. 9 o'clock FS1, Rutgers travels to Nebraska. Nebraska favored by 10. We'll see about Rutgers in their game against UCLA, which will have already concluded by the time you hear this. At 9 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, Maryland travels to Northwestern. Maryland favored by 3. Northwestern on the outside looking in. Maryland on the inside looking out in this is a tough little spot here. Northwestern, we know how good that home court is. Illinois found that out the hard way this year. Big spot for both teams in that one. And then at 11 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, number 16 Gonzaga travels to Oregon State. Remember we mentioned Oregon State's pretty good. I'm pretty sure this is a quad 1 game. I'd have to double check. Gonzaga's favored by 7. It's a quad 1 opportunity. Will they blow them out? Will Oregon State prove that, hey, we're going to be towards the bubble? We're going to find out. And finally, on Friday at 7 o'clock, Providence travels to Villanova. That's on FS1. Villanova favored by 8 in that one. At 8 o'clock, crunch time mode for both of these teams. On Fox, Indiana travels to Ohio State. Ohio State favored by 6 in that one at 9 o'clock. On FS1, UCLA hosts Iowa. UCLA favored by 5 in that one. And, of course, some Mountain West After Dark at 11 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Boise State travels to New Mexico. New Mexico favored by 4 in that one. That's going to do it for us today. A busy show, a little longer show as usual. Hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of rankings, a little bit of bracketology, a little bit of everything. Everyone stay safe out there and enjoy this week of college hoops. We'll be back and talking to you Saturday morning, maybe Friday morning, depending on what's going on, to talk about some conference power rankings. So it'll be a fun one there. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe and tune into that show. We'll talk to you again real soon. Everyone take care.